Since taking over a year ago, you can't argue with the fact that Thomas Tuchel has changed Chelsea for the better. Any arguments made against that can look to their league position and a certain big-eared trophy they picked up along the way. But one area of the pitch that has been consistently underperforming, the attack, is yet to improve. Or has it? What's up? My name's Adrian and thanks for joining me for this video. Really excited about this one as we'll be jumping into the numbers, comparing Tuchel's attack with Lampard's, looking into the analytics to see how Chelsea's strikers are performing, assessing whether it's a system issue or just a lack of clinicality, and much more. This is going to be a fun one, guys. Made all the more fun as great friend of the channel, Miz from the other side of the coin will be jumping in sporadically to give the Chelsea supporters' perspective on things because, hey man, I don't watch every single match. And so Miz's perspective is invaluable. But before we get into that, a quick shout out to our sponsors for this video, and if you're a Premier League fan, you're going to want to check this out. SPITCH. It's SPITCH again, my friends, and perhaps there will be a few Chelsea players you would want on your fantasy football team. Maybe not the strikers though. Because SPITCH is an officially licensed fantasy football app that is incredibly easy to sign up. Just use the link below, enter your credentials, and you're set. And on top of that, it's incredibly fun to play because SPITCH feels more advanced. It takes more skill and they provide tons of stats and metrics to consider when you're crafting your team. Just choose any competition to play in, Bundesliga, Premier League, Champions League, whatever. Some are free. Choose your formation. Let's do a Tuchel 3-4-3. Choose your players and captain and you're ready to go. Like I've said before, I am absolutely guilty of allowing my fantasy football teams to rot away after we're about, a week into the season. But with SPITCH, they look out for people like me by making it a match day competition as opposed to seeing who's at the top at the end of the season. You play a match day, you see who's at the top, and you win. So use the link below to see if SPITCH is available in your country, sign up, and win some real money. That's right, real cash prizes. All right, to Chelsea we go. On Wednesday, January 26th, The Athletic's Simon Johnson released an article on Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea as it was 1 year to the day since his hiring. The article started out nice enough, going over past managers, their tenures, what they achieved, and how Tuchel is respected and seen as a great person to have around the club. But then there's a bit of a shift towards the middle. Talk of how attacking players in particular aren't happy with how they are treated, and how Thomas Tuchel criticizes their play. In their mind, unfairly, and even alleges that some attackers are considering a move away from Chelsea in the summer of 2022 because of Tuchel, his criticism, and lack of chances.
The attackers are overall a bit unhappy because we predominantly played the 3-4-3. So essentially you play with the 3 forward attackers up front, and then the rest, you got the wing backs and the defenders and the midfielders. We've got a plethora of attacking players. We've got 7 attacking players. So 7 players for 3 spots. That's what we've been mostly playing. I know in recent times we've switched to a 4-1-4-1, but predominantly we've been playing that. The reason for that is Thomas Tuchel needed to come in and make us difficult to beat, and we were focusing a lot on defense. But in essence, it's given us a lot of success. We've won a lot of things, Champions League, Super Cup. So I can understand from that perspective, these players are a bit upset that they're not getting that opportunity. But I have to question some of these players that when you have been given the opportunities to play in those particular positions, you haven't been good enough. What do you expect a manager to do? You've not nailed down these positions. Players like Timo Werner, for example, it's been well documented that he's not a good finisher. So why is Thomas Tuchel going to persist with you?
Let's unpack that a little bit, shall we? To start off, he's right. Now, anyone who has watched my videos know that I have been a supporter of Timo Werner, based off of what we saw of him at RB Leipzig at least. And before anyone jumps to say something about, difference in quality between the two leagues, I'll stop you there. Watch a compilation of his goals while playing for Leipzig, put in similar positions in and around the box with similar pressure from defenders. He was converting chances that he is now missing at Chelsea. Since moving to Chelsea, even though I like him as a player still and still believe he could get back to that level, you simply cannot argue against the fact that he has not been good. And while he's had some unfortunate moments with goals being called back due to fractional offside calls, some of which would have actually stood this season now that I think about it, with the changes to how VAR draws their lines, the point still remains. Timo Werner and other strikers at Chelsea haven't been good enough. Let's look at some numbers for the Premier League alone this season. Werner, Lukaku, and Kai Havertz have combined for 8 goals for Chelsea in the league. Chelsea have scored 48 in total across 24 matches, meaning their contributions make for just 16.7% of Chelsea's goals scored in the Premier League this season. None of the strikers have been a mainstay. Lukaku and Havertz have made 16 appearances each. Werner has made just 11. If we want to look at it from a minutes perspective, when you combine these three, the players you could consider to be Chelsea's strikers, that is, you get 2,608 minutes. So, with Chelsea's strikers combined, you get a goal every 326 minutes. Compared to Liverpool, for example, well, first off, Mo Salah has quite literally scored twice as many goals as Chelsea's strikers combined. He's on 16 for the season so far. With 1784 minutes played from 20 appearances, he's averaging a goal every 111.5 minutes, about a third of the amount of time it takes the Chelsea strikers combined to score. Some quick stats to consider, as clinicality has been pointed to as an issue amongst Chelsea strikers. Lukaku has launched 28 attempts toward goal at an average distance of 12.4 yards, and only 10 have made it on target. That's 35.7% accuracy and a goals per shot on target ratio of 0.5, which speaks to the quality of finishing we're seeing from Lukaku, or lack thereof thus far. He's accumulated a non-penalty XG of 4.5, ranking second in the team behind Mason Mount, but 25th in the league. As for Havertz, he's had 27 attempts from an average distance of 14.4 yards, and 8 have been on target, 29.6% accuracy. His goals per shot on target ratio of 0.25 is half that of Lukaku. His non-penalty XG is 3.1, but he's only scored 2 goals. Not great. He ranks 46th in the league for non-penalty XG. And Werner, 6 shots on target out of 20 attempts from an average distance of just 13.2 yards. His accuracy is slightly higher than Havertz at 30%, while his goals per shot on target ratio is by far the worst at 0.17. Non-penalty XG for him, 3.3. With 1 goal scored, he is very much underperforming. I know you didn't need to be told that, but just goes to show that the eye test isn't wrong. As someone who watches Chelsea's attack game in, game out, what are they missing? Is it quite simply just the clinicality is not there for the strikers, or do they not have the right profile of striker for Tuchel's system?
I think it's a mixture of both. There's probably not the right profile, but at the same time, clinicality and mentality as well, Adrian. I feel like some of our players, they don't have that hunger and desire. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, I want to be the best in world football. I want to be the next Mo Salah. You know, those guys score goals for fun. Adrian, you've mentioned that it's not like we don't create opportunities. We create. If you look back at the game where we played against Burnley, we had a 1-1 draw at home. We create a plethora of opportunities. Players like Kai Havertz missing, Ross Barkley missing, Callum Hudson-Odoi missing, gilt-edged chances missing. Recently against Spurs, we won 2-0, but it really should have been 4-5-0. Romelu Lukaku missed 2 big opportunities. Great cross from the right from Mason Mount coming through. The first one, it was a right-footed volley. You expect a player like Romelu Lukaku, who cost 100 million, to at least hit the target. Instead, he hit it rose Z. The other one, a nice low drive cross, and Romelu Lukaku had an air shot at it and missed it completely. And we've had many situations like that, not just Burnley. So for me, Adrian, a manager cannot teach you how to finish. That's on you to work on yourself in training and be focused. Like, I'm pretty sure Klopp didn't sit around and teach Salah how to finish. That was Salah's desire. That was his burning desire inside, that I want to be a clinical player.
Naturally, when the attack isn't working like it used to, there are comparisons to be made to previous managers, and some recently, with Chelsea's poor form, have started to turn on Thomas Tuchel. How bad is it? Well, in the Premier League, Chelsea have won just 3 of their previous 10 matches, taking them well and truly out of the title race, unless 2 unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely scenarios happen. City start to drop points in their final 15 matches, and Chelsea go on a near perfect run in their final 14 matches. And that's not even looking at Liverpool and how they are nipping at the heels of City, 1 point ahead of Chelsea with 2 games in hand. Stick with me here. Let me be absolutely clear. Let me drop a big clarification here, because before I ask this question, I'm a big Tuchel supporter. I think he's in, top 3 managers in the world that are active
Yeah.
right now. And you're obviously a big fan as well. I think all Chelsea supporters can see, maybe not all, there's some crazy ones that are calling for his head, of course. But I've got to ask this, Miz. It's been a full year since he's taken over. And when I first spoke to you, I think when I first sort of met you, actually, we were talking about, is this just a temporary system that he's going to use, this 3 at the back type of thing? And he has started to use a 4 at the back. But it feels like there hasn't been much progress as far as strikers finishing their chances. When you look at it from the outside, these are strikers that have been successful at other clubs. So how much blame, and it sounds like not much, but how much blame could you actually attribute to Thomas Tuchel and his system and it actually holding back these strikers, if any?
Honestly, Adrian, I look back at during Frank Lampard times as well. These strikers, I know we didn't have Lukaku back then. Timo Werner was still missing. Kai Havertz was still missing as well. So this is a new thing. They've carried that on from Lampard days to now to Thomas Tuchel days. They just haven't been clinical.
For the record, some opinion from me here. I do think that while this system may be difficult for the strikers, and we'll get to who it serves best later, but I do think that ultimately I agree with Miz, and opportunities have fallen to the strikers and their quality of finish has just been poor. I'm not a Tuchelista, but I absolutely respect him and admire him as a manager. That's for sure. Now, as Miz was saying, let's look to how Havertz and Werner performed under Lampard to see if this is just a personal thing between, these strikers and Tuchel, or whether they were just as poor under the former manager as they are now. One thing to keep in mind here, guys, Lampard had them for the first 5 months of their Chelsea career, their first 5 months in a new country and in a new league. So just something to keep in mind. Do with that what you will. So as for Havertz, he scored 5 goals from 24 appearances under Lampard. That's 0.21 goals per appearance. Under Tuchel last season, he scored 4 goals from 21 matches for 0.19 goals per appearance. Pretty much the exact same rate of scoring using the this grain of salt equation that I'm using. Timo Werner under Lampard, he scored 9 goals from 27 appearances for 0.33 goals per game. Under Tuchel last season, he was much worse. Just 3 goals from 25 appearances for Tuchel, putting his goals per game record at a shocking 0.12. Yikes. But what about the team in general? Let's do a quick comparison to see if those who say that the attack was better under Lampard are indeed correct. In the 2019-20 season, Lampard's first, Chelsea scored 101 goals from 55 matches for 1.83 goals per game. In the 2020-21 season, Lampard oversaw 29 matches, with Chelsea scoring 61 times for 2.1 goals per game. When Tuchel took over, he oversaw almost the exact same sample size, 30 matches, scoring just 38 goals in that time, however, for a much lower goals per game record of 1.26 to see out the season. So far this season, Chelsea have scored 74 goals from 37 matches for a goals per game of 2 even. Very close to that 2.1 Lampard was getting from the first half of the 2020-21 season. In other words, when people tell you that Lampard's attack was better than Tuchel's is, it's not really. It's 0.1 better than current season Thomas Tuchel's attack.
I can't sit here, Adrian, and say Thomas Tuchel is all to blame here. And you're right. There are fans out there that are going for his head at the moment that, it's Tuchel with his 3 at the back, go back to the 4, use more. Mate, we were conceding goals under Frank Lampard with 4. He had to come in and make us solid. So what do you want? Leak goals or be solid and see if we can nick a goal?
So, if we were to say that Tuchel's system doesn't serve to the strengths of the strikers, though I think we can confidently say it does, they just aren't finishing their chances, then who does it serve? As Chelsea are still scoring a lot of goals. It's not like they're Wolves with 19 goals scored and 16 conceded from 21 matches. No, Chelsea are third in scoring with 48, 6 behind City and 10 behind Liverpool. Mason Mount is Chelsea's top scorer in league play with 7 goals. Jorginho is in second with 6, all from the penalty spot, however. Lukaku, the highest ranking striker with 5 goals. And then you get the 2 wingbacks in Reece James and Ben Chilwell, Pulisic and Ziyech, and your centre backs of Thiago Silva and Antonio Rudiger.
The 3-4-3, I'll be honest, it's conducive to the wingbacks. We all know that 3-4-3 is all about wingback football. And it's not a coincidence, Adrian, that as soon as we had Chilwell and Reece James gone, especially Chilwell as well, because Reece James was around for a little while, but now he's gone as well, our form has started to dip because they were the 2 top dogs in our team. They were scoring goals, they were assisting, they were big components of Thomas Tuchel's system. You take away, let's say, I don't know, like Liverpool last season, a Van Dijk and a Matip and the rest of their defense. Well, they're not looking the same anymore, are they? Similarly with Chelsea, Chilwell and Reece James gone, we're looking a bit strange.
So when you consider all of these things, it comes down to this. Chances are being created for misfiring strikers who are required to be absolutely clinical in this system, and yet they aren't. Opportunities have been given, but they haven't been taken, much like the chances that have been created. In this system, Chelsea's very talented wingbacks are thriving, and since both Chilwell and James are out injured at the moment, Chilwell for the rest of the season, and James for 10 matches and counting at this point, isn't it interesting how you can chart their absence alongside Chelsea's struggles, almost to a T? As for the strikers, there's still a great chance that Lukaku finds form, that he gets over this mental baggage that he seems to have in the Premier League, and that he gets back to how he played against Arsenal and Villa earlier this season. At the beginning, I said he could be the missing piece, the beginning of the season that is, and he still could well be, but for now, in my opinion, it's incredibly difficult to blame Tuchel for the misfiring strikers that he has at his disposal, as Miz said. The manager can put the pieces in place to give you the best opportunities to score, but the burden of converting those chances ultimately comes down to the individual, and they haven't been up to the level that Chelsea demands. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and if you learned something new or you are digging the content, then do me a favor and drop a like to feed the hungry algorithm, or subscribe for free. That'd make my weekend. Also, another big thank you to my brother Miz for hopping on the channel and keeping me company and providing his take on things. If you're a Chelsea supporter, he is must-watch content. Aside from that, I'm Adrian, this is Rabona TV, and we'll catch you in the next video. Take care.